We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. We have a very special episode for you today. We're in the studio with none other than Matt Cox of Saucetown Properties. I'm Gabe Johansson. Trevor Howard's in here. Where's Mike?
I don't know.
Is he with Dane?
No, we saw Mike on Christmas and haven't heard from him since.
We have no Mike or no Dane. What was Mike doing? Was he partying on Christmas and he just disappeared, or
he was
what?
Looking for a girlfriend, and then we didn't see him again after.
He flew down to Scottsdale.
He was looking for. Oh, he went to Scottsdale.
Yeah, that's the place to find a girlfriend, I think.
He's playing golf. That's what
he's playing golf.
All right. Well, we miss you, Mike, and Dane. We kind of miss you too. We're going to see Dane again soon here, I think. So, Matt, it's really great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us. Matt actually lives in New York, but invests in Oregon and Washington. And you have a $9 million portfolio today. You doubled your portfolio size this year. So we're going to get your story. We want to hear your backstory. Matt and I, it's kind of funny because I met you, what was that, like 13 years ago I met Matt. Do you know this?
Are you his dad?
No, no, I don't think so. I hope not. No, actually, Matt wanted to get into, I think you were thinking about getting into the fitness industry.
Yep.
And my wife and I had recently opened up a studio gym in downtown Salem, and so we got together and did some brainstorming and stuff. But it's funny because now, fast forward, here we are. We're both deal junkies. We're out buying deals, and it's fun to watch your progress. So, Trevor, you look like you want to say something.
No.
Oh, okay.
Gabe,
you
forgot we actually, when I was first starting out in real estate, we met up at Brent and Kelly.
That's right. That's right.
Well, that was right when the pandemic hit.
We did
2020.
I remember you were out at that time working for like a wholesaler, or you were doing some flip type stuff, weren't you?
Yeah, I was working at a real estate investment company up in Portland.
Okay.
Called 10 Bridges. Bought basically the business model. He owned some rentals and stuff too. But what I did is we bought foreclosures, and so I was calling on off market. Notice a default.
So when was that? 5 years ago?
So I worked there. I started in 2016 and worked there until late 2019.
Okay, all right. So 7 years ago.
Yeah, tell us how you got into that, and was that like your first insight into real estate at all?
Yeah, it was. The way I got into it, in my kind of early mid-20s, I bounced around jobs. I bartended. I did sports radio. I did all kinds of random stuff. And then I didn't really care about money, and I kind of hit a point where I was like, okay, I need money now.
I care about money.
I want to do stuff. I want to go out. I want to travel, all that. And so I actually got set up with that company totally random, through a recruiter. Went through the interview process, got hired. I didn't know what the hell.
You were just looking for a job.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was. It was like something about real estate and phones and you're gonna call people. And I was like, I need a job, man. Where do I sign up?
So they heard your voice and they're like, he's the guy. He's got the sports radio voice. Put him on the phone. We're gonna go get some deals.
Yeah, it was fun. The guy who owned the company was kind of actually his kind of operations person vouched for me, and she's like, I think we should hire this guy because he was sort of an old kind of. He wanted an older guy doing it, guy or gal doing it. And he's like, I don't know if this young guy's ready. And she vouched for me and got me in the door.
He wanted somebody more stable, mature. So he's going to show up every day.
Yes, exactly. Right. He doesn't miss Monday because he's hungover.
All right.
Yeah.
So she vouched for you. You got the job. So you worked there for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, just over 3 years.
And this was your introduction to real estate?
It was, yep.
And you started to get really, really interested when you saw what kind of money he was making, right?
Yeah, when I was there, I saw what he was making, but I during that time, so he bought tons of foreclosures every year, did house flips. During that time, I bought one rental property while I was there. I partnered with my parents on it. To me, like, I saw what he was doing, but my lane was really just, I'm on the phone all day, every day, buying, I didn't have a ton of money. Buying real estate is something that these super rich guys do. Like, I don't.
Okay.
And it felt pretty out of reach. And I learned enough there to do my job, but I didn't learn a ton about, like, here's how you go get money from a bank. Here's how you sell, how you structure a deal. Here's how, I got good at talking to sellers and things like that and people skills on the phone, but I didn't learn a ton about real estate.
So where was ground zero for you? Where did you go like, I'm gonna make my money in real estate. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, so I dabbled with it there, got that one rental property, but where it really hit. So when COVID started, I was 6 months in at my next job, which was a kind of classic corporate sales job.
Was that in New York, or were you still in Oregon?
That was still in Oregon. So this is in 2020. Literally, the pandemic's hitting. I moved to New York in late 21. So working with them, I'm 6 months in, and the job is selling to U.S. and Canadian airports, and the air service world shuts down, right? Like unless it's a absolutely necessary flight, they're not operating. And I'm like, shit, I'm making zero commission for the foreseeable future. And I'm like, I got to start making more money or find a way to make some money. And I had so much free time because none of my customers, I wasn't making sales. Customers aren't getting on calls. And I just started consuming. Like I talked to Trevor about this the other day. I think I listened to probably 200 of the Bigger Pockets podcasts. Okay. And then I, read books, and I just started buying stuff. I kind of didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I was just like, I'm the type of, I just hear it on a podcast or a book, and I'm like, all right, let's go try it. Yeah. I started buying stuff, and really started scaling.
How'd you start? What was your first deal?
First deal was, besides the one I bought when I was with the previous company, but the first one I bought by myself, still own it, little duplex down on Church Street right here in Salem. It's a little 3-bedroom, and then it's basically an ADU in the back, but 2 units. I ran the math. Of course, when you're starting out, you run the math. It's just what you think you can rent it for minus the mortgage, and that's how much I profit this month. There's never going to be any repairs. There's no vacancy. It's
no tax or insurance. Or
I'm just printing. It's mailbox money. But yeah, that was my first one, and it actually it worked.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked. But bought it in 2020. And
so how'd you buy it? Like you did like a 5% down loan type of thing and lived in it, or what'd you do?
I didn't live in it. I pulled money from that previous rental that I had bought, and used that for the down payment, which wasn't that much, and then just got a conventional bank loan.
Okay.
Because I had the W-2 income too, so it was really easy to get a bank loan.
Cool. So were you hooked at that point? I mean, did you get excited? Did you get juiced?
Yeah, I was stoked.
So you're thinking like, I got to make money. In your mind, this airport thing's not working. You got to make money. So your thought was to make passive income, or your thought was, I need to build equity in owning buildings, or both?
It was, which I think is pretty common for people when they first start, it was all cash flow. Like I need money coming in every
So you really were aiming for a passive income stream, so you didn't have that stress every day, especially a guy who's been hitting the phones for years. Like that thought, I know the feeling, because I wanted the cash. My original goal was $5,000 a month in passive income, because I felt like, okay, at least then I know I'm going to survive and I can relax a little bit. So, because you like to sell, but it's still stressful to be like, wake up every day and I don't have anything until I sell something.
Oh yeah, it's funny you say that 5,000 number, because I literally bought this whiteboard and put this little thing on it. It looked like a thermometer that's going up and down. And when I'd get a deal, I'd like fill it in a little bit. And the number at the top of it was 5,000. Yeah.
Okay. So we have the same idea.
Yeah.
If we just had 5,000 coming in every month, and we didn't have to think about, like, life would be easier. That's cool. All right. So you got your duplex. So, from there, give us kind of a background. Like, did you utilize some of the stuff you had learned prior in your working for this guy who was buying the foreclosures, or you said you didn't really learn a whole lot there? So just through podcasts and books and other learning, you started to figure out how to piece your portfolio together. So you just ran off and did the same thing again on your next deal, or where'd you go next?
Yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, it was all podcasts and books. I also spent, shout out to Karen Cox. She was my conventional lender at the time.
Is that your mom?
No, yeah, not related. Not related, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, I should mention that. But I spent a ton of time on the phone with her, and she was super generous with her time, because I wanted to know how that she's a conventional lender. That's what I was using. Spent a ton of time with her, just learning how.
Where she work? Don't know the name.
I should know this.
Look,
but
Karen Cox.
She
lends money.
She's great. She'll give you money.
Okay.
But yeah, so from there, I learned about interest rates were super low at the time. So I learned about doing BRRRR deals. That was like all the rage at the time on Bigger Pockets and all that. So the next one I bought, and I kind of just repeated this process throughout COVID until interest rates went up. The next one I bought was out in Staten. I bought it from a wholesaler. That was kind of fun. That's the one when I talk about like sort of learning the business. Like the one I bought on Church Street, I just was like, all right, 20 down. Here's whatever, we're done. That one, I went out there and I did a lot of the work, painting, got the place in shape, got it ready to rent, did the refi, got all my money back. I was like, oh my God, this works. I did a Burr deal, and I don't know if your listeners are, I'm sure they're familiar, but
yeah, I think so. Everybody's listening to Bigger Pockets, except for me.
Okay. Were you able to pull all your money out of that one?
I did. I didn't have a single dime in the deal.
That's sick.
Yeah, and then I kind of just.
How long did that take you, start to finish?
They make you wait 6 months typically to get your money back.
So it's got to be seasoned. It's got to
exactly.
Yeah. So that's still good though. I mean, you went in, you did the rehab, got it rented out, got your money back in 6 months.
Exactly.
Go do it again.
Yeah, and I learned.
You can rinse and repeat that every 6 months and have, several units, which is what you've done.
Exactly.
How many times did you do that? Is that most of your model today?
No, not today. It's very different. That time that was my entire model, and I bought almost all of them from the same wholesaler. Who's an awesome guy. They're wholesaling gets a bad rap, but these guys have a really good rep in Oregon. I bought a ton of deals from them, and it was basically the same model every time.
You want to shout them out, or you don't want to give away your secrets?
Yeah, we can. No. These yeah. So these guys, they're called Discount Property Wholesalers. Shout out to Brad Taylor. They're good people.
All right, that's good.
I hate wholesalers.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because most of them suck.
True. Wholesale. It's a lot like car biz. I mean,
it's the lowest barrier to entry where people think they're going to get really rich really fast, and then they just are winging it.
But there are good wholesalers.
There are good. Yeah, there's good.
There's a lot of new people who don't understand the industry that are getting into wholesale.
Same as brokers. I hate brokers too.
You have so much hate in your heart, Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor, come on, man. It's the holiday season.
Jeez.
Right.
Give some love. Have some grace for people.
It is hard, though, because wholesale, it's a space that has the lowest barrier to entry. So you get people that put these deals under contract that they don't really know what to do with.
Yeah.
It does create that bit of chaos.
I love to see the email. It's like, this house is $200,000. It only needs $30,000 worth of work, and it's going to be worth $400,000. And I look at the house. I'm like, $30,000. Where you come up with that number? That does not make sense.
You do it all yourself.
Yeah, and you already own all the materials. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, so you say your model today is a lot different. You're not doing the Burr model. What's your model?
Well, I'm
today?
curious, how long did you get to keep doing that for until interest rate stops? Like what it looked like?
Oh, interest rates went up. That's what got you off of that model.
Exactly. So I did that probably till, mid 22 or I guess early 22 is when rates started going up.
So you're doing like a 1 to 4 unit property same way every 6 months?
I was doing. It was all single family or duplex at that time. Okay. I didn't buy a 4-unit or anything bigger than a duplex till this year.
Okay. How's that work on your credit? Like these all show up on your personal credit report?
The Burr deal, the single family.
Yeah, all your perm debt, your conventional loans are all there?
Yeah, they'll all show up on there.
All right.
Do you hold all those in your personal name too, or do you move them to LLCs?
No, I moved them all to LLCs.
Okay. Were you worried about due on sale clause when you did that?
I wasn't, just because I had talked to so many people, and I worry about it more now because there's the incentive for the banks, obviously, where
get off of that low debt.
Exactly.
You can always deed it back to yourself.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've heard of them being called. I know it's rare. You guys have probably seen it, but yeah, I didn't worry about it at all at the time.
Yeah, that's what a lot of beginners wonder about is the LLC thing, and then they're like, should I buy an LLC? And you can't with a conventional. They don't.
Yeah, and so then you don't get the protection. So if you're owning a lot of these and you want to have them you have each one of them in a separate LLC?
Yeah, so I would buy it in my personal name, and then after X amount of time, I would deed it into an LLC.
So for our listeners, like an LLC is a limited liability company. The reason why you put an asset into an LLC is to shield you so that if you get sued, one of your buildings, somebody falls down, breaks their leg, they sue you. Now, instead of coming after you or your whole portfolio, they are only coming after that what is held within that entity, which is that house. So you want to break it up into little pieces. We typically will own several assets in one entity, but once we get to a certain point, some partnerships we own every building in a different LLC. If it's a big enough building, that makes sense.
Can't they still come after you personally, even if you have stuff in an LLC?
Yeah, that's called piercing the corporate veil, gross negligence. So if you walk in and, hey, I pull out a gun on my tenant and tell them, rent's due or something, then they can come after me. Like, I mean, you're not always going to
that yet.
No, I've never done that before.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah. I don't have hate in my heart, Trevor. I love my tenants. Okay.
I love tenants too, just not brokers and wholesalers.
I know. I don't pull a gun on them either. I love brokers. I don't know if I love wholesalers. I've never really worked with wholesalers yet. So, okay. Trevor, take over. What other questions you have?
Okay, so keep going. You do these with a few houses, interest rates go up, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't buy properties anymore, or what do you?
It kind of was that for a little bit. Like I think in 20, so I bought a ton of stuff in 20 and 21. In 22, I barely bought anything. 23, I didn't buy a whole lot either. And then I bought a ton of stuff this year in 24. I more than doubled my portfolio this year.
So you were trying to build passive income to cover your sales job. Were you able to do that through that many rentals and burying them? Like, were you good, or were you still having to work a job, or what did that look like?
I was till I moved to New York, and stuff got a lot more expensive. But I did quit I worked my corporate sales job till August of 23.
Were you making no money doing it, or did it start to pick up a little bit and you were making some sales?
It picked up. I mean, at the time I was like, this is over. We're not making anything.
Yeah.
And then you guys know how it went during COVID. It wasn't, maybe as big a end of the world as we all thought it was going to be, but it was a nice spark to get me going. Sometimes you need something like that to be like, hey, you got to
do
figure
something different
out. Exactly.
That's cool.
So did you have enough passive income, just like living, like you were covered for your base living expense then off this like portfolio you built over those 2 years, or was it just enough to kind of build equity and it was covered itself, or what did it look like?
Yeah, it's when I was in Oregon, it was enough to live off of. Then I moved, and you guys know how expensive everything is out there, and I'm not really probably similar to you guys. I like to travel. I like to go out to nice meals, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not the type to be like, okay, I got enough to cover everything, and I'm gonna go make cheese sandwiches every day.
Trevor just eats Chipotle.
I said you guys. I guess Trevor's like that is me.
Trevor and I live very different lifestyles.
I heard that episode actually. I listened to all you guys' episodes.
So why'd you go to New York?
It was probably a girl.
It wasn't a girl.
It wasn't a girl.
I met my girlfriend out there, but no, I'd been in the Northwest my entire life. I was born in Seattle, grew up in Salem. I'd been in Portland for about 7 years, and I was like, honestly pretty sick of Portland. I sold my condo that I owned up there. I sold basically all my stuff that wasn't total necessities. I moved into one of those furnished rentals that usually travel nurses use them, but they're also like when you're in between and figuring out what you want to do. And I knew I wanted to move. And then I'd never been to New York. I went out there in June of 21, and I just loved it. 24 hours there, I was like, yep, this is it. And
really?
Yeah. And then by September, it literally got back to Oregon after I was there in late June. Started looking at apartments online, did a video tour of an apartment, signed a lease, wired a bunch of money to some random person across the country, and moved September 1st.
I went to New York once for a week, and I left and said, I will never go back.
I hear it. It is.
It was awesome, but I was like, that's too much for me.
I think that's how most people feel about it. It's great to visit. Most people do not want to live there. I love it, of course, but I totally get why people are like, I don't
tell us why you love it. I'm interested. Like, what makes, because my daughter's been to New York, and she's like, she was the same way. After one day, she's like, I'm going to live here. This is where I'm going.
Yeah, I just like having a ton of stuff going on all the time.
Okay.
Having a ton of people around doesn't overwhelm me. Having traffic, cars, honking, I love just constant activity where I can walk out my door and I can pretty much have the world at my fingertips.
Yeah.
But there's a trade-off. I can tolerate living in a 550 square foot studio. So there, you lose it. It's a trade-off. You lose out on certain comforts, but it makes me very, very happy being there.
So you find peace. See, I pull into a small little town with 2,000 people in it. I get out of my car and I'm like, honey, I want to live here. Listen, you can't hear anything. But my daughter's like you. She gets out of the car in New York and she's like, oh, this is my happy place. This is it's like what calms her down for some reason. I don't know.
And I mean, to your point, I do, I have to get out of there from time to time. Like, when I come
It gets
out.
to be a lot.
Yeah, my parents live out kind of a secluded area of Salem, and I get out there and there's a bunch of space and a puppy dog and a hot tub. And I'm like, this is pretty cool.
It's pretty
too.
good. Yeah. So do you plan on staying in New York?
Yeah, I have no plans to leave, and
Okay.
I don't know if I'll be there forever, but yeah, I'll be there.
Are you going to buy deals out there?
I don't know. I thought about it, but I'm just like, I have the whole network in Salem. I've got my portfolio here. It's such a different. I mean, Manhattan particularly? It's not. There is zero in common with the rest of the country.
They're all like one caps and two caps.
One caps, and everything is in like. Do you guys know what a co-op is? I never knew what that was till I got out there. So a co-op, it's like it's basically built-in housing discrimination. Like all these buildings have what are called. It's like an HOA. Except they get to make all these rules and they get to interview you. So you got your down payment, you're approved, you got money, you got a willing seller, and you've got a deal all set up, and you got to go in front of this board and they interview you and decide if they like you or not. And then they have all these other rules too about some of them you have to put 50% down, some of them 25%. It's just. Point being that,
and that's to buy like apartments in a building typically.
Yeah, that's to buy a condo, or it's just the market is like nowhere else in America.
One cap.
It literally, it's.
How does that even work?
I don't know.
Paying cash and hold it forever and pass it down to family members.
If you think about it, if you increase the rent on a one cap,
yeah, it's true.
It's a big value add.
Huge, but you got rent control too.
Yeah, you do have some,
and it's true rent control. It's not like Oregon. It's like somebody moves out, you got to move them back in at the old rent, right?
A lot of the city actually is free market. There's some that are rent control, but yeah, there's a lot of it. Like for example, my landlord can do whatever they want.
Is that building by building, or is it like borough by borough, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's certain buildings that are protected by the city. And, they get certain tax benefits and things like that. And to be in compliance, they have to be under a certain rent threshold. If a tenant stays, they can only bump it by, some very minimal amount each year.
Yeah. So you're in New York, but your portfolio is in Oregon and Washington. What's it like trying to build and grow and run and operate a portfolio clear across the nation like that? Do you travel back and forth a lot, or?
I'm out here probably 3 times a year.
Oh, wow.
It was fun when I was moving, but the first thing that popped in my head was like, I guess I got to sell everything. And then I kind of ran through what I actually did at the apartments, or at the houses, I should say. And I was just like, I don't know how to do any of the maintenance. Like when I'm in Oregon, I just call my contractors anyways, and they go do it. So I'm at the point now I've set up kind of a system with people on the ground, and I got good contractors. I got my in-house kind of assistant who manages a lot of it. But in a way, it's good because it forces you to build systems. If I was on the ground here, I'd have the temptation, at least at that point, I got to drive out there every time something's going on, and it really makes you hire people and build out systems that kind of run it for you.
I like it.
Yeah, you had, for your level of investor, you had way more sophisticated like systems and like everything in line than the average person of like that portfolio size you had at that time. Tell us about what it's Angela, because she kind of runs a lot of it, right?
That's right.
Tell us about like how that works.
Yeah, so until about 2 years ago, I was still doing the getting Venmos from tenants every month, and they all had my personal phone number. And it's one of those where it's like, I need to address this or I'm going to just hate real estate and I'm going to sell everything. And so I hired, like Trevor said, he knows Angela. I hired her. She's been incredible. I mean, she does property management. She does social media. She does all kinds of stuff for me. But she basically, and I set up a CRM, or sorry, not a CRM, a tenant portal. She's got all the contractors in there. Something comes up, she knows who to call. She knows how to put somebody in a lease, all that kind of
Is
stuff.
she a management company or just somebody you hired on your staff?
She is just a person. She lives in the Philippines and runs
like a VA.
A VA, exactly.
And she knows, so she's managing your properties and doing social media for you from the Philippines.
She is.
You're in New York. She's in the Philippines. You guys are running a real estate portfolio in Salem, Oregon. I like this.
Yeah. So tell us more about that, because did you have to train her for everything? Like you wrote out all the systems, had to think through exactly what you needed to do, because she didn't know how to do any of that, I'm assuming, right? Starting out.
No, she didn't know. I mean, she had a little. She's very smart, and she had a little bit of background. I think she's been with me like 2 years. I can barely even remember when I interviewed her. But yeah, I mean, that's I guess for anybody that's even buying your first rental to your 100th, write down everything that you do in a way that you can pass it to somebody. Because that's what I did. I just wrote down exactly what I would do when this situation arose, and I give it to her, and she's a quick learner and handles it.
How much does that cost?
She is $8.80 an hour.
Wow.
And I mean, you can hire somebody for $4 if you want to. She's awesome, and she's a single mom, and I want her
To stay around, yeah.
and she's awesome, yeah. But yeah,
How does somebody find an Angela?
I went on Upwork. That's usually the best place. I mean, there's other places you can go, but go on Upwork. I actually read a book. I think Trevor knows this one. We talked about it. It's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. The second I finished that book, I got on there. I was like, I have to hire this position right now. So you go on there, find somebody. Good way to test them out. Give them a task. Say, I've got a leaky sink at this apartment, and a good test for it is, do they ask you 100 questions about who should I call, blah blah blah, or do they just do it? They get on Google, they figure it out, and if they're a self-starter, they're going to get on there and they're just going to handle it for you, and the job will be done. And that's a good way to find somebody.
So do you have like a preferred vendor list that you use?
I do, yeah.
Okay. And you just found them through trial and error, hiring different people. You found the ones that did their good work and decent price and all that, and said, here's our people we use for these things. If you can, when this goes wrong, call this person.
Exactly. And then I trained her further along because I noticed our costs were getting really high. We have a new system where I'm like, we're going to get 2 bids for everything now. But yeah, I have my core guys who are my main contractors who do my flips and stuff like that. But and then we have a list of kind of subcontractors as well.
Okay. So you're flipping as well.
I am, and I know I've heard the episodes. I know how you feel about flipping. So I
hate flippers.
I don't want
I'm
you
just
to.
kidding.
Are you gonna break out in hives if we start talking about it?
No. No, I think flipping is a great way to break into the industry and make some now money. We talk about how do we make now money, and we're brokers, so we just go broker a deal. I think it's a lot less risky than flipping, but I do respect people who can make money flipping because it's not an easy thing to do. So tell us, are you doing a ton of? Is it just something you do for a little extra cash, or is this part of your business model?
It is. So at any given time, my bandwidth right now is I can probably do 3 flips at a time. Usually it's only 1 or 2. But yeah, it's part of my now money. It's exactly what you're describing, right? I'm buying, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I'm buying more of these rentals that you don't make money for a year or even 2 years, and so you have to make now money. And so that's where the flip and wholesale business comes in. But
and that's Oregon also? Oregon and Washington?
Yeah, I'll do flips pretty much. No, not in Washington. I've only done Oregon for that stuff.
But you could flip. I mean, based on the model and your systems and Angela and the whole thing, you combine those systems run both of your businesses, yes?
Yes.
Your day-to-day rental management assets as well as your flip. So you could potentially take those systems and do this anywhere in the world, theoretically.
Yeah.
If you understood the laws, knew the markets, and were able to build that infrastructure. And the reason
finding the contractor.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah, having people that you can trust. Yeah, you got to have managers, you got to have contractors. That's why when we look at a deal out of state, it's like, oh man, I was taught by my mentor. I don't know if you ever met Brian Miles.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, okay,
Yeah.
so great. He's best friends with Brent Culver, and I'm sure knows your dad. But he told me you'll always make more money out of town. That's where you'll get rich, is out of town. And the thought process behind that is that when you're looking at another market besides your own, you look at it through a different lens than the locals look at it through. And so it's interesting to me. I've gone to other markets and I have made most of my money in other markets outside of Salem. But it's funny because when I'm brokering mostly in the Willamette Valley, and people are coming here. And then so I'm trying to see through their lens on what they see coming to Salem. It's the same thing that I look for when I'm looking in markets. So it's like, what is job growth? What is income? I went and bought 2 or 3 buildings on a street in Astoria. By the time we got to the third one, somebody came to me and they said, like, thank you so much for changing that street. Like, that was the worst street in Astoria. we had no idea. I was like, wait a second. So which street are you talking about? They're like, because we just went in, renovated, did whatever, cleaned it up, had good management. We had no idea we were buying, buildings on the worst street in town.
Good due diligence.
Yeah. The idea is because you don't live there, you're just more objective.
You're
about it.
more objective.
You're
exactly.
Like, the numbers work. I don't.
That's not how he thought about it.
Well, because
can I buy this deal?
Somebody that's local to that area, that deal came up, and they would have just said, "I'm not buying a deal on that street. That's a piece of shit."
Right? How many people do that in Salem? Right?
A lot.
Like they don't even look at what it costs or what the rents. It just that's a bad spot.
Bad area.
I'm not buying it.
Don't want it because it's a bad area. Yeah. So there is. It's funny. We get a little bit of a blind spot, I guess, living too close to certain things. We just go like, there's a great deal just down the street from where we're sitting right now. And everybody keeps bringing me the deal, and I'm like, but not that street. Like that's the crappiest street in our
Trevor,
neighborhood.
where is the deal? You haven't showed me this one.
It's like $7 million, so we're not quite there yet, but could be. We could talk about it. But yeah, it's on a street that has notoriously been known for being a bad street. If I was looking at that same deal in a place 2 hours from here, I don't know what street's a bad street.
Right.
I mean, you can look at crime reports and you can do, but I mean, if you're not from there, you don't really know what's going on, right?
So
talk to the property manager, maybe.
You're flipping and wholesaling. Did you start that while you were in New York?
Yeah. So I did my first flip in like mid 23. And then the wholesaling. So I hired a full-time acquisitions guy this year. And that's where I kind of really started getting more serious about it, because I was buying to do flips. I was buying them from same wholesaler, and then flipping it. And so I was finally like, okay, I'm going to cut out the middleman here. They're taking a 30-40 grand assignment fee every time and try to get my own off market deals.
Okay. So have you lost money on any flips?
Yes. Actually, no, I haven't technically lost money. We just had
time.
We just had exactly.
Yeah.
We just had one that closed. I think I legit made like $1,500 or something, and it took 6 months.
That's part of the game. If you're doing volume, that's just going to happen at some point, though.
Yeah, if you get big enough, you can shoot like 70% if you hit 7 out of 10 and do well. But I'm not doing that much, so it hurts when I do one like that. I'm like, man, that was
a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
To get out.
So you start flipping, start wholesaling, you're in New York, you haven't bought rentals really, you're doing that for some active income, and then that's your only active income now is doing that?
Correct.
Okay. And then you're like, okay, I need to change my business model. Well, like, why did you decide to start buying more rentals, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, so I started buying bigger rentals. Actually, I started working with you guys, Trevor, and you started bringing me stuff.
Had you not bought a deal until that point then?
I hadn't bought a rental. I'm trying to think what I barely bought. I bought maybe 1 or 2 deals in 23. And it was, it kind of was the interest rate thing, because all these deals that were just like, all right, BRRRR deal, net $1,000 a month, great deal. They don't work anymore. And I started working with you guys, and you bought, I think the first one you brought me was that duplex where we structured it like we took over the guy's loan.
Oh, we did a lease option.
We did a lease option. That's right. And that's what kind of opened my mind up to doing some of these bigger deals, because I didn't know anything about. I knew what like seller finance was, but I didn't know how to actually put it into practice. So that was part of it. And then also,
so that deal made sense for you because you could just like go put whatever 30-40 grand down at cash flow. It's like, yeah, I'm just buy and hold rentals now.
Exactly. And I had a bunch of cash because I sold a couple of my single family homes, and I remember talking to you, and I was like, I'll buy these things all day. And then
did we run you out of money?
Not yet. You're trying. You and Sabrina are sending me stuff every day. I think you're trying to
follow Trevor around. He'll make you rich, but you will run out of cash.
we're getting there.
Okay. So
Nope, keep sending them to me.
So you buy that one and you're like, okay, this is cool. We can buy more creative deals, or what are you thinking? Because at that time you had 13 doors or something like that?
I had 15. I think you did the math on this the other day. I think I had 15 or 16 entering this year, and now I have 35.
Okay, so you just scaled hard this year then. So you weren't thinking about buying, you started thinking about buying, you buy that, and then tell us more, like, what is your thought process go through? How do you go about doing it?
Yeah, it just, once you do the first one, for me, it started making sense. I sort of, in my head, knew how some of this stuff works, but until you do a deal, it doesn't, for me at least, it doesn't really click. And so I was in this headspace where, like, I can't cash flow rentals, right? And getting into the space where you can still kind of turn back the clock and get 3% debt, 4% debt, opened me up to this stuff. And then it also made me realize I didn't want to own single family homes anymore. They're great. You know, I'll do my flips with the single family stuff, but I don't want to own one-off single family rentals anymore. The numbers don't work. And then the other piece I learned about is the whole value add part of the business. Like I'd buy these single family homes. I'd fix them up and increase the value that way. But there's just way more ways to do it when you get into, stuff that has more units.
Okay. So what'd you do next then after that?
Yeah. So the next, you guys brought me this one as well. This was kind of crazy because I didn't know this was a thing either. I bought a fourplex where I actually got money back at closing.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to bleep this episode out now.
No, this one was cool. We set it up with just purchased it, and then the seller had all this cash, so he just lent it back post-close, and then had a bunch of money to go rehab the property with unsecured. It was just a promissory note. The dude just didn't need all the cash. So you borrowed
you have to be careful who you say that to. People think we're just shysters when we do that.
Everybody wins, right? He wanted a return on his money, and
win for the seller. He got to sell the property.
And you went and borrowed the money from him. Money he just got in his pocket.
Yeah, so now he had all this money he didn't know what to do with, so he lent it to Matt for 10 years at 4% or something.
That works.
5 years. I wish it was 10.
5, that's right.
You want to do that deal again.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that I was like, whoa, this is actually a thing that can happen. And then, what else did we this year? Got another fourplex, a sixplex. We've got a duplex we're closing on in a couple days.
When you said houses don't pencil, what's the problem? They just don't cash flow because they cost too much. Cost basis is too much, or what?
Yeah, It's just hard, when you have 6 units or whatever, you can increase the rents across those units, and the math just works better. So if I have 6 units that I can increase at $300 each, that's $1,800. I'm never going to increase the rent on a house by $1,800.
Scale becomes exponential. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the thing I've noticed you're really good at, too, is your operations are on point. So you're coming in day one, and you're starting all your rehabs and everything, and you're, increasing rent roll immediately, whereas we don't do it that fast always.
Why?
What we buy. Why don't we?
Yeah.
You tell me. You're in charge.
You're the asset manager.
Well, that might be the problem. I thought you were.
It's not a bad idea. I don't know. I mean, I have that one on 32nd, the sixplex. I'm letting it sit. The one on Salem Heights, we're trying to increase rents, but now it's like the middle of the holidays, and we're trying to find renters. So you can shoot yourself in the foot with it too. But yeah, we'll do the renos day one, mostly just because if I have the money, I know it will start burning a hole in my pocket. So I'm like, I'd rather fix it up now and hopefully get higher.
So you give notice that you'd QLR the tenants on when you first buy them.
I do sometimes.
Pay them to leave, or how do you clear the? I mean, because you can't do a no cause eviction.
Right. This one, this most recent one I did. It's the first one I've done this on. Actually, we gave them cash for keys.
You just made them an offer and they took it.
Exactly. Yep.
How much did you have to pay them?
$2,500 per unit.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible.
Yeah, because you have to give 1 month's rent anyway if you QLR, right?
You have to give 1 month rent, yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been like $1,000.
And 90 days.
So you really only give them like $1,500.
Yeah, Logan and I did this once on a 20-unit property.
And you probably make that back with the rent increase because you're out 90 days sooner.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it is to offer them the money first before.
Well, that was a good QLR amount to get it.
Yeah, what our experience was, we offered $5,000 cash for keys at a property, 20 units, and not a single tenant took us up on it. So
why do you think that is?
Rents were just so low they couldn't
so
go anywhere.
Insanely low. Yeah.
I mean, you'd think there's a number, right? I mean, we could have tried more, but so then you go through and it's like most managers don't want to do a QLR unless the unit's trashed and it's uninhabitable or something like that. So you're paying 1 month's rent, you wait 90 days, and you don't want to do it on a unit that, you want to be honest about it and say, well, that unit is not livable. It needs to be totally renovated. So if it's a nice unit, which when we come into a property, that's the people we want to leave first are the nice units because they're the one. Those are the units that aren't going to cost as much to turn and the ones that'll get the biggest rent pop.
Yep.
So, we'd grade them A, B, C, D as you come in. It's like, okay, if we're going to give notice, we'd give notice to raise rents on the A units first because we want those tenants to leave.
Right.
Even though they're great tenants in a great unit, their rent's too low, and that's the unit that's just going to be easier to turn and put a higher rent in there. Go back to when we talked in 2018 or 19. What was the takeaway from our conversation that we had at Brent and Kelly's?
It's funny because I remember I think I just bought the Church Street deal and I was looking at some others, and I remember you came in. I don't know if you remember this conversation, but you gave me this whole talk about you could keep buying these houses, or you could put your name on 100 doors in the next 3 years.
Gabe's advice to everyone: go buy 100-unit apartment complex.
So of course, what I did is I kept buying single family houses. That
was a good
didn't
move.
listen to any of it.
That was a good move.
No, that was the takeaway. I remember you gave me a few books to read. No, I appreciated it a ton.
You just knew you should buy real estate.
Yeah, I mean that's the most. I think that was the most important takeaway. Is like just go buy stuff.
Buy deals.
Don't overanalyze everything. Like you can spend years reading books and doing all that whole thing, but you got to buy deals, or that's how you learn the business.
Who's your favorite author or person you listen to, podcasts, or is there somebody that you're just like, I took away so much from this, Kiyosaki or Cardone, or was there anybody out there that really like sang to you, spoke your language?
Yeah, so for me, it was Bigger Pockets initially. I listened seriously. I think I went back and listened to 200 of those episodes. Probably. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad like everyone else does. It's just, that's the ultimate mindset shift book.
Yeah, it's where it all starts.
And then, I'm going to come off as a homer here. I do listen to this pod religiously, though. Like this, nice. If you're Bigger Pockets is great. It's a little, it's great. Great when you're. Is it? I haven't listened in a while. But this pod's awesome because it's the market I'm in, and you guys do a good job.
Oh, you're listening to Deal Junkies.
Oh, I listened to.
Oh, wow!
I swear, I'm not BS.
This is an ad for Deal Junkies.
I do genuinely. I listened to about half of the new episode this morning, actually.
Cool. Thanks for being a Deal Junkies fan.
No,
hopefully we're helping you buy more deals. That's what we're here for.
It is.
We want to buy more deals. We want you to buy more deals. That's awesome. And being able to hear your story is inspiring. It keeps us fueled and charged to go out and buy more deals.
Yeah, tell us more though, because it's actually insane. Because you went from 13 or 15, then you bought 18 or 20, or got to 20 or whatever. Like most people are wondering, how do I do that? Because there's a lot of people in your shoes who are like bought all those rentals and their like interest rates go up. Like I'm stuck. Was it a mind shift like change where you're like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to buy deals, or you just started doing it and saw more? Because you've been buying like a deal a month basically, which is most people never do that.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a couple. I think it's establishing a buy box. Like that's the biggest. There's a lot of things I'm not good at. What I am good at is I'm very decisive. Like, you guys know, if you bring a deal across my plate that fits what I'm looking for, I'm like, okay, let's, where do I send earnest money? Let's do this. So that helps. It's a mindset shift too. Like back to our conversation a few years ago, I think when you were telling me buy all these apartments, I just didn't believe that was something that a guy like me was supposed to do. I was like, I'm like, Gabe, I just bought a duplex. I'm not, this isn't gonna, and then it goes back to when I was at the real estate investment company in Portland. Like I told you guys earlier, it's just kind of, buying real estate, something, super rich people can do. It's not really what I do. So it's a mindset shift for sure. Just kind of believing in yourself. You're supposed to do this. And then it's having a buy box and When something that fits it comes across your plate,
say yes.
You got to execute. Like, you do not be a tire kicker. It's the most. Realtors will stop bringing you deals. People will stop wanting to work with you. Like, there's nothing more frustrating, I'm sure, for you guys than.
Oh, we just crossed those people off our list.
Yeah.
Here's the deal you said you wanted. Oh, you don't want it? Okay.
Yeah.
Next.
Let me check. I'm just running through the financials again. I just want to look at there's always going to be something that can go wrong. And if you're looking.
Well, and why not put it under contract, do your due diligence?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, you can always get out of the deal. There's going to be a period of time to study the deal. It's after you go under contract, not before.
Yeah.
That's a hard concept for some people to grasp.
Yeah, when I partner with people, that comes up all the time. Like, hey, what about this? I'm like, let's go under contract. We're going to request every single thing that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's good advice. Yeah, so 35 doors. So the thought, I mean, I like what you're talking about with the mindset shift, is because a lot of people out there are thinking like, this could be, maybe it's out of reach, maybe it's not for me. How do people actually do this? And it doesn't feel possible. And to be able to tell people it is possible, we can all buy real estate, and you don't have to buy thousands of doors if that's not what you're trying to do, but you can go out and do deals that you didn't think you could do. And the interesting thing is buying that first house or duplex can be really scary. And once you get it, you're like, oh, well, that's pretty easy. Now you can do a triplex or a fourplex. It's not as scary. And you can just kind of work your way up. So you talked about in the beginning, you had your little meter, you're going to get to $5,000 in passive income. Clearly today you have a different reason why you're running the business that you're running. What's your end goal now? What are you trying to accomplish?
God, I don't have an end goal. I really enjoy it. And that's why I think I can stick with it. And it's a long-term thing for me, is because I get so much enjoyment out of just doing. I love making money, of course, but I like the process of it too. There's a million corporate sales jobs in New York I could go get if I wanted to.
But you're a deal
money.
Junkie.
I am. Yeah, I think I am.
You're doing it because you love the game.
I do. Yeah. So I don't have an end goal. I don't set like I want to be at X number of doors this year, because I think that makes you. To me, that makes you buy shitty deals sometimes. If you're just like, I need. Yeah.
I was just listening to Trevor and I talk about this on Deal Junkies.
Yeah. So it's a lame answer, but I don't have like a goal for it. I guess it's more of a. I think of it more as a process. Like, if this thing comes across my plate, I'm going to execute on it. Then.
Well, you're wondering how you get into bigger deals now, though. It's kind of what you've been thinking about, right?
Yeah. So I guess that is a goal. Yeah, I'd like to get into some bigger stuff, like what you guys do.
So, what do you think the best route for him to get into the bigger deals would be?
Well, I mean, what's cool is I'm watching your brain develop right before my eyes. Like, you're going like, oh my gosh, like, I can't do a 100-unit apartment complex. All I was doing was giving you a glimpse into your future a few years down the road, right? And so now you own 35 doors. Well, owning 35 doors, every single one of those deals that you did to me is a seed. You planted a seed, and you can turn every one of those deals into a 100-unit apartment complex. And that's kind of the way I look at my portfolio. Is I want to own big buildings. I want to own, they don't necessarily have to be brand new, but I want to own 100-plus unit complexes that have the best debt on them you can possibly put on them. I want to hold them forever. I want to go back and just tap them every 5 or 10 years for millions of dollars in debt and live on that debt. I mean, this is what the really rich people do, is they live on debt. Elon Musk doesn't take a paycheck. He says, I need $1 billion, and he goes and he borrows $1 billion against Tesla stock or whatever, right? There's no tax event. Like, that's what you want, is you want to hold the assets, whether they be companies or they be buildings or whatever, stock or whatever assets you're holding. You want to be able to build that asset base up so that you can go tap it with debt. And I learned that from Paul Curley, watching him. Like, he'd just go back to the well. And the first 20 years or so, he didn't make a lot of money. There wasn't a lot of cash flow. He lived a very frugal lifestyle. He was a lot like Trevor is. But then he got to the point where he had this huge asset base, and he was pulling these big refis and putting tens of millions of dollars in his pocket tax free. I mean, it's the most brilliant way to make money ever invented in the history of man. And so, like, once you understand that,
are you making money though? You're not.
Well,
you're taking out debt.
You're making equity as you go along, but you're not touching it. It's like a piggy bank you can't tap into. And then one day you get to go and you get to tap some of that equity, but you tap it in the form of debt, right? So you're borrowing against the value that your buildings have created for you over time.
Fake money.
It's fake. Yeah. But, they created the system. They rigged it this way. So we're just playing the system the way it was meant to be played. That's all it is. We're just playing the rules by, they made the rule book. We didn't make the rule book. Anyway, I just think that once you start to grasp that concept that I'm building the biggest asset base I can possibly build so that I can go tap it whenever I need to tap it to either go do more deals or go buy a yacht or do whatever it is you want to do with the money, you've got it sitting there and it's protected, it's growing, it's appreciating, it's a tax shelter, and it's doing all these things. And then you get to tap it with high quality debt and go out and use that money for your lifestyle to do whatever you want. So when you say, okay, I've got 35 doors, I've got $9 million worth of real estate, that's great. So now that $9 million, if you don't do anything, that $9 million is going to be $18 million in 10 years. You're going to have $9 million more in equity. So now you have a new problem. Your equity's not working for you the same way. And so until you get to the point where you're like, I'm done working the equity, you're just going to want to keep buying and buying and buying as much as you possibly can buy. And at some point you're going to turn around and you're going to go like, oh my gosh, like I've got a bunch of equity sitting here. I can sell this one, trade into another one. I can go take out debt and go party for a year, do whatever you want to do, right? So I would say the next move is just expanding your brain even further into that next deal. And I'm like you, like I don't set the goal like I want to do 5 deals or, we do set goals in our businesses and stuff. But the way my brain works is I'm thinking more, I have a visual in my mind of what it is I want to own. And I'm imagining what that building is that I want to own. And hopefully for you, what's happening now is you're like, I've done the duplex, I've done the fourplex, I've done the sixplex. Like I want a 20 unit.
Well, that's what you were thinking, right? Like 20 to 32 unit or something last time.
And then to me, that was when I partnered on my first 28 unit deal that I did. The very first deal I ever did was a duplex. That completely changed my life and the way I thought about real estate. And then when I did my first 28 unit, I only owned 10% of the deal. I bought it with partners. And when I owned that 28 unit, that was the impetus for me to take off and start building a portfolio. To me, 28 units seemed like a very big deal at that time. Today, 28 units probably sounds like a pretty big deal to you.
It does. It's probably a little bit of like imposter syndrome. Like I've done all these deals. I know I'm an expert. I think I'm an expert in this space, but it's like anything you haven't done before. Like, am I going to underwrite it? Am I going to make a mistake? And you have to rip the Band-Aid off and do it.
Yes,
once.
You're going to make a mistake.
and that's actually kind of when I'm struggling with a decision like that, it's kind of a freeing feeling to just be like, just accept that. Like, yes, I'm going to screw stuff up. It's going to cost. I'm going to lose a lot of money. Stuff's going to happen, and guess what? It's all going to be okay after.
Yeah, don't get too protective of what you've built until you've really built something big. That's the best advice I can give you. A lot of people start off with almost nothing, and then they try to protect it, and they just suffocate their net worth. Like there's just no way to grow it when you're suffocating it. So be willing to lose. Be willing to do a bad deal, lose money on a deal. I don't think there's any shame in that. And you will make mistakes. Some of them are happy mistakes. Sometimes you'll do a deal and you're like, wow, I had no idea that was going to turn out as good as it turned out.
Yeah.
I mean, losing money though, like on a long-term hold, like you're not really going to. You might have to spend more than you thought on it, but like
yeah, it's like a bad haircut. If you just wait long enough, it grows out.
Yeah, as long as you got the reserves and that type of stuff.
Yeah, long-term fixed rate debt. Like you underwrite that deal wrong and your expense ratio is 10% higher. That's going to suck for a year or two.
Right.
But like if you hold it long enough, it will correct itself.
Yeah, Paul and I talk about buildings like they're horses, and we're out there, we're jumping on a wild stallion that's never been tamed, and we got to jump on and hang on as long as we can. If we can hang on one day, then we'll be rich, and if we can't hang on and it bucks us off, like
that's because you're buying the biggest pieces of junk you can.
Sometimes, not always, not always. I've got a brand new building we're just trying to do lease up on right now. That's like one of those horses,
Okay.
It's like, I mean, anything that you do, you're going to learn. That's part of the fun. It's all going to be stressful, and you just don't want to, you don't want to lose sleep, or you don't want to have a heart attack over this. But like, you want to push yourself. At least I think you'll want to push yourself to continue to think bigger. That's the takeaway here is to you today, if I say, hey, what do you think of this duplex? You'll go buy the duplex in your sleep. Like it's
Right.
You're like, whatever. Back, if you remember back to when you bought your first duplex, it was scary.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my gosh, what if I make a mistake? And what if I lose it all? Whatever. Same thing happens now when you buy your 28 unit, is you're going to be like, oh my. Now it feels like originally what the duplex was, but just as you go along, you'll do that 28 unit deal and you're like, oh, I can pull this off. And then eventually, where everybody goes, whether it happens in a few years or it happens in 20 years, eventually everybody gets to the point where they want to hold bigger assets and they want to buy. I mean, you talk to most of the syndicators today, they don't even want to buy something under $50 million.
Yeah.
So it gets into this big thing. And the funny thing is at a $50 million level, they're doing the exact same thing you did on your duplex. It's the same thing. All you do is just add zeros. The problem is the more zeros you add, the crazier it feels. Like it starts to be like, whoa, you know. Exactly. Logan and I closed on an $11.5 million deal last week, and we thought, like, oh, okay, good, we did another deal. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I mean, hopefully that one goes well. It's a little out of our wheelhouse. It's a little different property. It's a little, but we signed on to another $8 million worth of debt, and that's a lot of debt. But we feel good about it, and this is what you do every day. Once you get to a certain point, it's just rinse and repeat.
So how do you see Matt going into that 30-unit deal from where he's at right now?
I think for me, first off, what you want to do is you just want to put it out into the universe. You want to do a bigger deal and just say, I want to do a 20-plus unit deal. And once you say it, and then you tell Trevor and your other brokers or whoever's bringing you deals, your wholesalers or whatever, say like, I want to try to take down a 20-plus unit. From there, then it just comes down to me, it's predicated on the deal. Like the deal will lead you in the direction that the deal will lead you. So it may be a deal that you take down with hard money for the first 6 months, or it may be something you have to raise some capital on with a couple of partners, or it might be something you decide you want it, but you have to go sell something to get into it, or whatever the case may be. But until you see the deal, you don't really know. Like I think that's part of the problem. And this is what Trevor struggles with all the time, is trying to envision and make a plan specifically to get to an end goal that's set. It's very a scientific approach to look at it. To me, I'm a little more esoteric. I like to think in terms of, I put it out there, I want to do this. It comes to us. When it comes to us, to me, the good deals come to you. Mm-hmm. You can't really chase good deals. The harder you chase deals, the more they kind of run from you. So you want to become a magnet. You want to attract this deal. And so it sounds woo-woo, but it's like you got to just get up every morning and go, I want a 20-unit deal. I want to, and just go tell people you want one. It'll show up.
It's not just attracting, like it's you telling people is the...
Say it right now in the mic.
I want a 30-unit deal this year.
Okay, Matt
year,
Cox.
We got like 3 days left, dude.
Oh no, sorry. By this year, I meant 20. Well, this year too. If we can close in 3 days.
2025. This will air in 2025.
Yeah,
so in
exactly.
2025, Matt Cox, Saucetown Properties, he wants a 30-unit deal. He put it out in the universe.
Do you think it's better to, because the other route you could go is just being like, okay, I'm doing 1 4-plex right now. How about I do like 3 a month or 4 a month? That's the other
you can do that, but I would do that at the same time.
Do it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would keep, so everything that's in your buy box today, all we're doing is we're taking your buy box and we're just making it a little bit bigger. So I would say if 4-plexes are still in your buy box, now it sounds like you've taken houses out of your buy box.
Correct.
So the buy box has shifted a little bit. So now we used to have houses in the buy box. We moved the house out, but now we're going to expand. We were doing up to 6 or 8 units. Now we're going to expand that to 30 units. And the goal is to close a 30-unit deal next year in 2025. To me, that's a goal right there. And we'll see what happens. To me, you put that into the world, it's going to happen. It's 100% going to happen. You're going to get a 30-unit complex next year.
Yeah, it's no different. It's expanding your buy box the exact same way 3 years ago I would have been probably scared to buy a 6-plex. It's just a thing you haven't done before.
Yeah, and so that's where your mind is. So that's funny. So if we brought you a 40-unit deal, would you go like, oh, that's a little too big? Or would you say, I don't know, let's take a look at this 40-unit deal?
I'd take a look at it right now for sure. You guys got one?
So see what happens? So quickly your brain starts to adjust. It'll come a point where, you'll say a 100-unit deal will not look like a huge deal. It's still a big deal. Mm-hmm. It's important. I mean, these things you get into, as the deals get bigger, it does get a little more serious. There's more attorneys involved, the more accountants, and the lenders are more sophisticated. I mean, everything sort of changes a little bit, but to be honest, like once you get to that level, it actually gets easier. Like this game, what's cool about it is it starts off really freaking hard, and as you go, it gets easier and easier and easier. So your 30 unit, I bet you when you get there, is going to feel easier than when you bought a sixplex.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're on track. You got to just keep doubling your portfolio every year.
That's a good goal. But if I get
a terrible goal.
But if I get
that was the door goal.
Yeah, if I get
ego.
But if I get the 30 unit, that's already doubled it.
Yep.
So maybe it's too low.
Maybe it's too low.
Yeah, we always have that discussion. Are we talking, should we build a door count? Should we build a dollar? Is it dollars or doors or cash flow? Or, and then we always come back to the same thing. Like, well, what are we doing? What are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to make money. Okay, well, does it come down to how much cash flow, how much equity? What are we trying to build? But at the end of the day, the end goal for us is the same as yours. We just want to keep having fun. We don't want to stop. We want to keep playing the game in a way that will allow us to keep playing the game.
I think the easiest way for me to conceptualize it is to have that buy box, and I'm going to buy everything that fits that. So then the next question is, how do I get more deals that fit that buy box to come into my radar, basically?
Yeah. Well, you've heard Grant Cardone say, who has my money? This is us just saying, who has my deal? Who has my building? Somebody's got my building. If I know what I want, if I'm going to buy in and around Salem, Oregon, and I want 30 units, well, there's only so many of those buildings, right? It's like it's not like everybody and their grandma owns a 30-unit apartment complex in Salem, Oregon. Like it's a fairly small data set that you're working from. So you may say, well, here's my zone, here's my footprint of where I want to buy, and here's the kind of deal I want to buy. Not just any 30-unit, but I want something value add. I want to be able to push rents. I want it to have some hair on it, but I don't want it to be falling over. Whatever the case may be. Some things you're willing to work on, and others you aren't. So, all right. Are we going to wrap up this episode, or you guys got more?
We got deals to talk about.
Oh, we're going to talk about deals. We're going to do another follow-up episode?
Yeah. I think we took it roundabout right there, all the way from beginning to end.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. He reminded me that we had a conversation, and in the conversation I told him he should buy real estate. I like that. Everybody should be buying real estate.
He did. He took action on it.
He did.
I did.
I really commend you for doing that. I give that speech probably thousands of times, and very few people actually listen to me.
You should switch it from
you YouTubers. What?
Well, you should stop telling people to buy 100-unit complexes and just tell them to buy their first deal.
Yeah, I know. I should have you there with me, so you'd be like, yeah, Gabe's telling you this, but he's a little ahead of the curve. You'll need this information in a few years. I'm just skipping to the end for you. Yeah. I'm the ghost of Christmas future. Yeah. Well, I think everybody hopefully is doing more deals. We'd love to hear your comments about this podcast while you're listening. Please share us with your friends. And thanks so much, Matt, for being on the show with us. We'll do a follow-up episode, and we'll talk specifically. We're going to dig into some deals. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure being here.
All right.
Wait, if people want to reach you, how can they reach you? You got a blog you're posting. You got some other stuff, too. Tell us about it.
Yes. Instagram, The Real Matt Cox 4. Blog is substack.mattcox444.com. Business Instagram is at Saucetown Properties.
It's awesome. And Matt's putting some good content out in the world. I love reading your blog. There's
thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.